And now on the Two Murrays, Strata Matters with Stephen Brell for the Strata Community Association, New South Wales, the peak body representing the strata industry.
Stephen Brell is with us for the final time, of course, President of the Strata Community Association. Any questions in regards to living in a strata environment, call up and have a chat to Stephen, all right? But you've got to do it quick because he's always very, very busy. 131873, 131873. How you doing?
I'm fantastic, gents.
Good to see you for the last
one. I'm a little bit, melancholy this being our last show.
Yeah. I've got 8 boxes of tissues over
okay.
here. All our guests have been howling. It's been unbelievable. But anyway, it's been unbelievable. 131873, that's the telephone number if you'd like to have a chat to Stephen. Did you have a question for him?
Yeah, I did.
Or have you solved that off air?
Well, it's been solved off air, but it concerns. I'm always intrigued. I've been living in this environment for nearly a decade. Mm-hmm. And I've got to say, hand on heart, I knew nothing about it before I moved in.
Is it the retirement village?
No, it's not the retirement village. Yes, smart heart. He's here all week.
Trying to schnitzel.
Don't encourage him. It's about the delineation between strata strata issues and personal issues. And strata issues as they pertain to the outside of the building. Just about everything is. I mean, if a tap is leaking, or you've got some rust, or the bloody roof's flying off, that's a strata matter. But when you step inside your particular lot or apartment or flat, that's your business.
Yeah, that's right. And again, it's really important for owners and residents to understand where their responsibility begins and where the owner's corporation's responsibility begins as well. Because this is one of the common areas of disputes in strata schemes, is not understanding who is paying for what. And
here's the thing. You've been telling us right across the summit, more and more and more people are moving into this environment.
Yep.
More and more. But the ignorance out there, and I say that with respect, I was completely bloody ignorant about moving into that environment where you have to actually consult other people, other than the neighbours when you're playing music at 2 a.m. You actually have to consult your neighbours about matters of common interest.
Yeah, it is. And it's something which we are pressing continuously with government, and particularly now that we have a strata commissioner in John Minns. It's about how we educate residents in the strata environment about what their rights and responsibilities are and who is responsible for what. Because, look, strata living can be very complex. We do have very complex legislation. However, we are trying to make strata easy. Just on your point about who's responsible for what, we do have something called the Who is Responsible Guide for strata owners, which you'll find on the Strata Community Association website, which again tries to break down in a step-by-step way who is actually responsible for what. But again, something which we'll always advise people is that you do need to read your strata plan and understand your bylaws, and they're the two documents that will really lead you into what you're paying for and what not.
Because, look, the number of people who, we get it every week that you come on and they say, oh, my God, I'd do anything to avoid living in that environment. But, look, for a myriad of reasons, more and more people are going to make that choice, particularly older people, because if you're a widow or you're a widower and you've downsized and the kids live in another city or another town, another part of the state, it can be a really great environment for someone on their own, even a retired couple, because there are other people around. You become friends, you have a couple of glasses of wine together, blah, blah, blah. It can be a really nice way to spend the last few years of your life.
Absolutely. Look, my parents have just moved out of their retirement village, and they had a great community. They made a lot of friends there. They were there for over 25 years. They had social committees, they had social outings, all sorts of things, and they got on really, really well with their neighbours. We do hear, all we hear often in the media is the sad stories of living in strata. But as I keep reminding people, we've got about 90,000 strata schemes in New South Wales, and you only ever hear of a handful that are in trouble.
And look, in all seriousness, I mean, you've been on the program since we started, and we take probably 10 or 15 calls every weekend, right? So when you compare that to the amount of calls you're not getting. And there's people living in that environment, it's doing all right.
Yeah, it's not going too bad. Certainly education is needed out there, as we just pointed out. And strata living is all about compromise, It's about compliance and compromise and just getting along with your neighbours, just making sure that you are living in a harmonious environment.
Too right.
131873 is our telephone number. And Paul is online this afternoon, first cab off the rank. Hi, Paul.
Hi, how are you, boys?
Well, sir, thank you. How can we help this afternoon?
Yeah, look, I live in a unit, a small Art Deco building in Bondi. Just wanted to know, what are the basic necessities we need for fire safety in the building, and where is the best point of contact that I could be pointed in direction of?
Okay, Paul, that is a really interesting question because fire laws in New South Wales and in fact across the state are changing constantly. So what requirements there are for your building would largely depend on what your local council dictates, and that will be determined by the age of your building. Now, it'll also depend on things like how many people are living in your property and if there have been any changes made to the property. Your first point of call, however, would be the local council. So they'll be able to tell you what the fire regulations apply to your building. Okay, what you may find is that they may require the owners or the residents of your building to upgrade the fire requirements for their scheme. So again, there will be council officers in there that can point you in the right direction. The other place where you may go is talk to your strata committee or if you have a strata manager, to them and just find out, particularly what the rules that apply to your building are. And the reason why different laws change or apply is because there are different levels of sophistication of fire apparatus in buildings. So more modern apartments have quite sophisticated fire systems, therefore they need specific types of maintenance.
Yeah.
Older schemes like the one you're living in probably don't have the same requirements, but again, I appreciate that the residents of your scheme will probably want to make sure that their fire code is up to scratch.
Would there be no requirement to retrofit more appropriate 21st century fire alarms? I mean, it's just an absolute basic for living in that environment.
Yeah, there is. It actually prompts me that there was a case up in Queensland, which is quite timely, which is, we might recall last year, back in August, there was a fire on Russell Island that tragically killed a father and his 5 children. It was dreadful. Now, this wasn't in a strata environment. This was just a rented property. However, what's happened in that case is that the landlord has now been charged by the police for failure to install a smoke alarm. So it's a reminder for all the landlords out there that there are laws surrounding the installation of smoke detectors in apartments that have to be complied with. Now, the laws do vary slightly between Queensland and New South Wales. However, the rule is if you're having a rented property or own a rented property, you do need to put smoke alarms in for your tenants. So, again, very, very important. So, Paul, getting back to your question, I would seek guidance from your local council and take next steps from there.
Okay, and the frequency of checks that are conducted of your fire safety system, is it every year?
It is every year. So if your building has what's called an annual fire safety statement, then all the fire apparatus that's on that statement, so things like extinguishers, smoke detectors, sprinkler systems, fire dampers and so forth, they have to be inspected at regular intervals during the year. If you don't have a requirement for an annual fire safety statement, then again, it's just the general rules that apply surrounding smoke detectors in apartments.
Okay. All right. Good on you, Paul. Thanks so much. 131873. Diana's on the line from Chiswick. Hello, Diana.
Hello. Thanks for taking my call.
Pleasure. How can we help?
Last year, our strata went up by $900 per quarter. So we're paying nearly $3,500 more. It was very sudden, and obviously some people voted for that, and probably a whole lot of people didn't even know to go and vote for something like that. But I guess my question is, can this just keep, like $900 hike per quarter, can this happen again this year? Can it continue on? I can't believe the jump. Like, it's not a CPI. It's just like nearly $3,500. So it just didn't make sense to me, and I'm just concerned. Should I continue living here if we get another hike again like this?
Sure. So, Dinah, I think the first thing that's really important here to recognise is that strata owners set their levies. Okay, so your strata committee and your strata manager may make recommendations to the owners, and levies can only be set at the annual general meeting, so they have to be voted on by all owners. Now, this is part of the reason why it's really important I know strata, for me, strata's really exciting, but I know for most people it's really boring. However, it is your home or your investment.
He throws
or
a good party.
Yeah. It's either it's your home or investment, and it is important to get involved and at least understand what's going on.
What about if you're in hospital? What about if you're interstate looking after mum or dad? You may be overseas on a holiday when the AGM's on.
Yeah, sure. So what you can do in that circumstance is actually appoint a proxy on your behalf, and they can attend the meeting on on your behalf and vote the way that you instruct them to vote.
A proxy doesn't have to be another resident of the building.
It doesn't have to be
a son or daughter.
It can be a friend, a relative.
Okay.
It can be a neighbour, anyone you like.
So it's important you have a say.
Yeah, that's right. It's important that you understand what's going on. One of the great frustrations for strata managers and for strata committee members is that there is a huge amount of apathy in strata. So people will just simply float along and just let someone else be responsible for it.
Yeah.
But situations like this can occur. So Diana, to answer your question, can it keep going up? The answer is yes, it can. However, I want you to understand that you and your other owners are in control of your budget. So you set that.
But would it be? I mean, is it too much to ask that when you live in that strata environment, that the Treasurer would be able to do some 3-year forecasting and say, okay, these are the things that we need to do over the next 36 months. This is how much,
for example.
Well,
so,
whatever. Yeah. This is how much money we've got in the bank. Yeah, strata fees are going to go up, but they're not going to go up $900 like that.
Yep.
We're going to put them up by $150, and then the following year we're going to do the same. People have got some notice and some warning.
And you can plan a bit better.
Yeah, and this stuff's coming down the pipeline.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's right.
Surely you've got to have somebody in there with a little bit of know-how in regards to adding up.
Yep, there is. So there is a requirement both in Queensland and New South Wales that owners' corporations carry out what's called a Capital Works Fund assessment.
Yep.
So that's a 10-year forecast of long-term maintenance for your building.
Okay, which is what any normal business would do anyway.
That's right, yeah. What happens is, and what's happened in the last few years, and I'm suspecting this is what's happened in Diana's case, is that there have been some expenses that have gone up way beyond CPI.
Yep.
And the biggest one is insurance.
Sure.
We're finding is, most premiums are going up 25 to 30%.
Yep.
And that is generally the largest expense for most owners' corporations. The other things that can, run levies off the rails, if you do have unbudgeted expenses, so you might have an emergency maintenance works that occur at your property or some unforeseen things that happen.
Like a car stacker breaking down?
A car stacker breaking down or all those sorts of things. But again, you would hope that between your strata manager and your strata committee, they are appropriately communicating with residents and owners so they understand what's going on.
Do you know any strata communities that actually self-insure? They've got that much money in the bank.
They're actually not allowed to. So across all jurisdictions, because strata. Yeah, so this is an interesting one. Strata insurance is one of 3 insurances in Australia that's compulsory. So every owners corporation must have a building policy. You can get a exemption for that, but it is extraordinarily rare. I've only heard of one scheme up in Broome, I believe it is, in WA, that have actually been granted approval to self-insure. And that's the reason. The reason behind that was their premium was about $450,000 for a block of 12 apartments.
Good God.
Yeah, that's right. So they were given special permission to say, right, you can self-insure. But as I said, it is a very, very rare event.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
But that routine maintenance of a building, the stuff that you would do on one of your properties, Muzz, you have to clean the gutters, paint the doors, blah, 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 every year or so, do the, the window surrounds.
Yeah.
You're times 5 in a big building. That's going to be an ongoing capital cost, but not every year, maybe 5 years.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that called your sinking fund, isn't it?
Yeah, so your sinking fund or capital works fund is for long-term maintenance, so things like your repainting, recarpeting, those sorts of areas.
Your common areas.
That's right, your common areas. I would encourage every owner's corporation to undertake a preventative maintenance plan. So that's looking at things like looking at all the apparatus that you're building. So your lifts, your pumps, garage doors, those sorts of things. Yeah. You put them on a preventative maintenance program. And what happens is, yes, it will cost you to maintain. However, it will prolong the life of the equipment. There'll be fewer breakdowns, and you'll probably get a little bit more life out of there as well.
Okay. Sandra's asked a question here on the text, then we're going to take a quick break. But 131873 if you want to have a chat to Stephen. My rental lease states that we are under strata rules. Please kindly explain what this means for renters.
Okay, very, very good question. So basically what that means is that in Sandra's case, she has to adhere to the strata bylaws of the building. So in her case, it'll largely be the behavioural things. So things like not making noise, not parking your vehicle on common property, not putting your washing on your balconies, those sorts of things.
Right, okay.
And again, she should have been given a copy of the bylaws when she signed her lease.
Right.
So that's a requirement in New South Wales.
Okie doke. Stephen Brella's with us, President of the Strata Community Association. If you'd like to have a word with him, get some advice, anything at all, all right? You've got about 35 minutes to do it. 131873.
This is the Two Muzzies, and of course Stephen Brell, being a Sunday afternoon. It's the 25th day of February, our final program for the year, or for the summer anyway, and taking questions and providing answers about strata living. Malcolm has come through from Ashfield in Sydney. G'day, Mel.
G'day, how are you?
Pretty good, sir. Thank you. How can we help this afternoon?
I'm sorry I'm going to miss you for a while.
Oh, you're the one. You're a lovely man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know, look, the question about strata, there's a block of units and they've got concrete cancer in 3 of the units. 2 of the residents are going to have to move out while the concrete cancer's fixed. In the process, either the kitchen or the bathroom may have to be ripped up to repair the damage. Ooh. Whose responsibility is it to put the bathroom or the kitchen back in? Is it the responsibility of the strata or the owner of the unit?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. So when there's major renovation works like this that go on, generally speaking, the owner's corporation, so the body corporate and the individual lot owner will negotiate between themselves. So the owner's corporation will be responsible for the repair of the common property. Okay, and again, because they're likely going to be putting in, a replacement kitchen or so forth, they'll generally negotiate a price with the lot owner within the building. Wow. Okay, but again, it really depends on what the scope of work is, and what's involved in those renovations. So. It's a tricky one, but it's generally a negotiation between the lot owner and the owner's corporation.
All right, good on you, Malcolm.
Yep.
Thanks so much. Just very quickly, Pam has sent us a text, and she's the treasurer, right?
Yeah.
She had recently employed a so-called quantity surveyor for a 10-year plan. We had one to 16 and wanted a fresh one. We expected the cost to be about $20,000 for the report. It was only $1,800, but it had absolutely nothing in it. And she said it's just probably more word of warning than anything else.
Yeah, so it's really important whenever you engage an expert to provide advice for you. I always say to people, and particularly with a capital works fund planned, ask them to show what is going to be involved in the report or what sort of detail is going to be in the report. So I think what Pam's concern was there is the report that she got was fairly devoid of information for their building. So again, but you can specify what you would like the quantity surveyor to actually look at for your scheme. But generally, they'll only go and provide a really basic report unless otherwise specified.
All right, mate, stay there. Do not go away. 131873 if you want to have a chat to Stephen Brell. We're going to take a break for a little bit of this.
This is Strata Matters for the Strata Community Association New South Wales, the peak body representing the strata industry.
Stephen Brell is with us, 131873.
You did mention Apathy before from Ian. Thank you very much, Ian. Most of the owners where I live don't bother attending the meetings, often ignore the AGM agenda. The Apathy's dreadful. There's only 9 units involved. Get involved, people. It's your life.
Yeah, look, it's your home, it's your investment, and it's worthwhile paying attention. It's only once a year, the AGM, so it's not that difficult to get down and understand what's going on in your strata building.
All right, let's have a chat to Bill. He's called us from Potts Point. G'day, Bill.
Hello. How are you going?
Very well.
I'm in my 70s, and I've owned apartments both in America and Australia, and I've also rented ever since I left university for, say, the past 50 years. I'm single. And I'd like to know why in Australia there is no such a thing as strata insurance that's specific to strata units. In America, they have house insurance for people who own standalone homes. But for apartments, they have what is called co-op insurance. And that is less expensive for the owners generally than insuring an entire house because they don't include unnecessary coverage for things like lightning strikes and flooding. And I feel like going through the list of things I'm paying for, that the only 2 that really matter to me living on the 6th floor of a very secure apartment block is fire and theft. And I can tell you we've had 1 theft in this building with 24 units, 10 stories, in over 20 years. 1 theft, and that was because someone lost their keys. They obviously had indicated the address, and somebody used the keys to break in overnight, and we caught the guy with the video camera, and he was reported to the police. So, I mean, I think even burglar insurance is probably very important to have for peace of mind, but it's probably fairly impractical in terms of what I'm paying for what I call homeowners insurance.
Okay, Bill. All right, we might just get Stephen to comment on that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Bill, essentially the system of ownership in the US and Australia is slightly different. So in our system, it's the owners who own the building, and in the US system, the co-op system, as you describe it, We would call that in Australia a build-to-rent scenario. So that would be where one entity owns the entire building and they rent it out. Now, again, there would be a specific product in the US for the residents or the renters of the building called co-op insurance, as you say, which would provide discounts and so forth. We don't have that system in Australia simply because we don't have many build-to-rents in this country. It is a phenomenon which is on the increase, and I know that the state government is looking at providing incentives for developers to get into that space, but quite simply, we don't have the insurance product for it because we don't have the market for it. So in our system, we have the owner's corporation or the body corporate has to insure the building itself, and then each individual lot owner or tenant then takes out their own contents insurance for the contents inside their property. And that's simply the system that we have here. There's nothing better or worse or right or wrong. It's just we've got different systems.
Yep.
Good on you, Bill. Thank you for the call. Here's one from Alan, and this is a text message. More than 75% of owners agree to sell to a developer. Are minority owners who don't want to sell, are they allowed to appeal to the Land and Environment Court? And if so, who has to pay the legal costs?
Yes, they can. So this is a rule that came in New South Wales in 2015. It was updated in December last year with the first round of strata law reform in New South Wales. But essentially, yes. So an owner's corporation or body corporate can decide to sell to a developer with a 75% majority.
Wow.
If anyone in the minority who objects to it, yes, they can appeal that to the Land and Environment Court, and all their legal fees has to be paid for by the developer who's looking to purchase. And the reason for that mechanism is to make sure that no one can be forced out of their home without fair representation. So, yeah, it's a good mechanism. I can tell you that since 2015, there's been over 207, I think, of these type of arrangements where a developer is actually, where owner's corporation has decided to sell to a developer.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And only 7 have ended up in the Land and Environment Court. So the system, that particular system, seems to be working.
Would it be fair to say that the price that you would get for your unit would exceed what the market value is?
Absolutely, because what's happening in a lot of these areas, and look, particularly as buildings come to the end of their economic life, so they might be now 40, 50, 60 years old, it is simply too difficult to try and upgrade these buildings to the current code.
Yeah, fair call.
And they often get rezoned. So what will happen is, where there's a 4-storey building there previously, it may get upgraded to 6 or 8 stories, so it's more incentive for the developer to pay good money.
All right, mate. Do not go away. Go, take a quick break, yeah?
Okay.
What are you looking at me like that for?
I'm just rubbing my eye.
Wrong one. No, they're both red. Look like you've had a really big night. 2 Murrays, Stephen Brell's with us.
Yes, indeed, 2 Muzzies and Stephen Brell with us, Strata Community Association of New South Wales. But look, common laws apply. Interesting query here. Does the 75% rule apply in Queensland and Victoria?
Yeah, very good question. So I know that the Queensland state government have made, they're just about to introduce new laws, which are very similar to New South Wales, where a scheme can terminate via a 75% majority.
Right.
Okay, so that's where a developer comes in and asks them for it. Looks like down in Victoria, and again, I must stress I'm not an expert on Victorian law. However, it looks like they still have 100%.
Is there, so I'm assuming based on that there's no strata schemes with only 2 units in them?
No, there's heaps of strata schemes with 2 units in them.
Yeah. So what happens, how do we get 75%?
Well,
what happens if one does and the other one doesn't?
Check out the big
You
brain
don't.
on Muzza.
It's not that big. It's only 50%.
Yeah.
What happens in that case?
Well, again,
find it out.
So the most common, the most prevalent type of strata schemes, certainly in New South Wales, are 2-lot strata schemes. So there's 45,000 of them in New South Wales.
So those 3 floors that you own at your place.
You're an idiot.
What
You are an idiot.
And that spiral. You put the elevator in, didn't you?
I did.
You did. I remember from the 5th floor all the way up to the 8th.
But it was very nice of you to lend me your staff.
That's no dramas.
Great.
Well, it wasn't beaver hunting season, so they had nothing to do. It was their downtime.
Shut up.
Ruben's on the line.
Hello, Ruben. Good afternoon, sir.
Hi, good afternoon. How are you?
Very well, thank you. How can we help this afternoon?
Look, I bought a unit July 2021, and on the form there was the contract. The strata was 780, but when I moved in, the lawyer told me it's 1,000, over 1,000, and I said the real estate didn't say that to me. He gave me the form. It said 780. He said, well, I don't know about that. I can't help you now because you already signed up. So I'm just, now recently it's gone up to $1,270. I'm just wondering, is there some way I can shop around and get something cheaper? Because it's just getting too much with the mortgage going up. And I am in a block of 6 units, and there's only 2 owners in there, me and another guy. He's not interested. So how do I get out of this? Can I do something?
Yeah, Ruben, it's a very common, the cost of living crisis is really hitting across all sectors, and I certainly hear what's occurred here. To your first question about when you purchased the unit and the levies were $780, and then when you moved in they were over $1,000. Every year, your owner's corporation or body corporate will set a budget, and it may well be that by the time that you purchased to the time you settled, they may have had their annual general meeting and they've decided to increase their strata levies to accommodate their expenses for the next 12 months. As far as, can you change your levies? Yes, you can, but owners' corporations really do need to set realistic budgets to set, for their expenditure and what their expected expenditure is over the next 12 months. The other thing which I'll say about levies, which all owners should understand, is that they really are an investment back into your property. Okay, so just like, taxes pay for things like infrastructure, so roads, hospitals, schools, that sort of thing, your strata levies pay for all the infrastructure of your building. Okay, it is important to understand where they are going because money can be wasted. So the best thing that you can do is understand your budget, understand where your expenses are going. By the sounds of it, if there's only 2 owners who live there and the other fellow's not interested, do you have a strata managing agent, Rupert?
Yeah, I have. And they have meetings online, and I'm unable to attend those one day on a very different odd time while I'm working.
Yeah, so I understand that it can be difficult to get to a strata meeting, but like my advice before, I can encourage you, and if you can't attend, I would encourage you to send a proxy along, so someone to go on your behalf. And again, they can ask the pertinent questions, what's going into our budget. Aside from that, in your meeting pack, there should have been a budget there explained for you, and it will outline what all of the expenses for your building are. But again, my advice is for all strata owners, get involved and understand where your money is going.
Okay, good on you, Ruben. All the very best.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yep.
If the levies had gone up in a strata environment for whatever specific reason, everybody was willing to pay them, and then all of a sudden, for some reason, I don't know, they didn't need the funds or they managed to get a cheaper quote or whatever. Have you ever known money to go from a strata environment back to the owners? And they said,
absolutely.
We're going to give you a rebate.
Yep.
Or we're going to freeze body corporate fees or strata fees for 12 months.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a common thing. So there is mechanisms in every jurisdiction. So often owners corporation will plan for maintenance and their plans will change. So they may have a surplus of money.
Yeah.
So in that case, yes, there's 2 things that they can do. They can either reimburse the funds back to the owners, and that reimbursement is done in accordance with the unit of entitlement, or like you said, Muzz, they can simply put it in their bank account and then set cheaper levies for future years.
Okay, beautiful.
Okay, let's go to Rose Hill because Narelle has been there the longest. Hi, Narelle. How can we help?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good, thanks.
That's good. What I'm ringing up for is I've got a Federation house at front, but I pay body corporate because there's 5 units behind me. Mm-hmm. Now, I want to know, I pay strata fees, I pay the most, and is my house, who has to pay to have my house painted? Do I pay or the body corporate?
Yeah, it would all depend, Narelle. Yeah, it would all depend on how your development has been set up. Now, if you are part of the owners corporation, it would be my guess, and I got to stress it would be my guess, that it would be part of the bylaws that your house would be included in the maintenance costs. However, by the sounds of it, it looks like your block was a heritage apartment and they've built apartments around you, right? Which is not uncommon. There are a few developments like this around Sydney. In most cases, the property, the house, does form part of the owner's corporation or the body corporate, and it is included in the maintenance. However, you'd need to read the bylaws for your scheme and go and check your strata plan, and that will give you the definitive answer.
Okay. So if you owned a home on a very large block and you decided to subdivide, leave your house, put the apartments at the back, it would actually probably be advantageous for you to be part of the strata, wouldn't it? Because everybody else would be paying for your painting.
Yeah, well, again, and this is how some of these things...
Yeah,
that's right. And that's how sometimes that's how these developments occur. Right. So, yeah, in most cases, the reason why the house remains is because it's a heritage listed property, so it can't be...
Gotcha.
Yeah, so...
I could build a condo.
I thought council had knocked you back. You've applied to put...
Imagine all the units I could build at my joint.
Well,
and then everybody would have to help me pay for painting and everything.
You could have a whole suburb in your backyard. It's astonishing. Let's go to Arthur, who's got a very interesting question. Hello, Arthur.
Hi there.
How can we help, sir?
First of all, going to miss you guys, and especially this segment. I think it's compulsory listening for anybody that's on a body corporate or a strata.
That's very good of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
But, no, my question relates to a unit. I'm a chairman of the strata. The units are about a unit of 13 block or units. And I've had a query this week from somebody who wanted to use the common laundry. And they tried to use the laundry, then they were told by somebody down there not to use that washing machine, that's theirs. Apparently we have a common laundry down, common washing machine down there and dryers. But then I thought, well, the first port of call is to look up the bylaws to see what are the rules regarding use of the laundry and the PowerPoints, etc. Mm-hmm. And there was nothing in the bylaws that I could see that dictated this. Now, I'm not sure about how common this is. The block is, I suppose, 1970. So I don't know how many blocks have common laundries, but I'm looking to see where would be the rules that govern the usage. Who can put washing machines in there? What PowerPoints they have to use, etc.
Yeah, Arthur, very good question. So to the first point of your question, yes, common laundries are very common, particularly in older strata blocks. It was a very common way that units back then were developed. To the second point of your question, who can do what? Very good job on consulting the strata bylaws. In this situation, there can either be a situation where a resident can put a space for their own washing machine, so they'll bring their own machine and connect it to their power and water, and away they go. Or sometimes they are the old coin-operated common machines where you pay, $1 or $2 to use the washer and away you go. From what you've described, it looks like the area is simply common property with an area for people to put their own washing machine. Okay, so it's not a common system where the residents pay to use the washing machines. So in that case, on the strata plan, there should actually be a little drawing and showing you where, who can put their washing machine where and who belongs to what. So you'd have to consult your strata plan. Yep. Hopefully it will be on there. If it's just depicted as common property, then it's pretty much going to be a first come, first served basis. So wherever you put your machine is sort of where it's located, if that makes sense. So I hope that helps.
I wouldn't want somebody else's smalls going in my washing machine.
I wouldn't want to wash my smalls in a machine that's hosted yours.
You should feel so privileged.
Oh,
they would come out fresh and clean.
Goodies.
Hey, settle. 11 minutes to 3 in Sydney to 2 in Brisbane, 2 Murrays. Stephen Brell is with us from Strata Community Association. 131873 is the number. You got a text message.
Indeed, from Chris Muzzies. Are the strata management companies paid a percentage of the take, like real estate agents, or are they paid a fixed rate? That could explain, he says, the increase in levies.
No, that's not common. So most strata managers charge a fixed fee, a management fee, right. And that fee is usually based on the number of lots or number of apartments in the building. So no, they're not tied. So if strata levies increase, no, your strata manager is not getting an extra
not trousering the extra dollars.
No,
trousering the extra dollars.
And what about stratas? Strata fees, are they tax deductible?
Yes, they are. If you have your property as an investment, yes, you can claim them on tax as an expense.
Okay, beautiful. Let's have a quick chat to Scott. He's in Miranda, which is where I was last week. Hello, Scott.
G'day, guys. How are you? Thank you for this session. It's really quite valuable.
Excellent. Thank you.
Question that I had is, when you're voting at the strata meetings, different units will have different entitlements in the complex. Is it correct that it is one person that's there is one vote, or should the UOE of each unit go into the voting, so it's sort of broken down by what you have?
Yeah, it's an excellent question, Scott. And again, it's something which I think all owners should definitely understand. So the normal way that you take a vote at a strata meeting is simply one vote per unit. And you normally do that under a majority rule. Now, what can happen, and what you're describing here, is something called a poll vote. So what a poll vote is when the vote is taken based on your unit of entitlement. So just for all the listeners out there, units of entitlement are similar to your shareholding in the building. So the more units of entitlement that you have, the more voting rights you get. However, you also have a greater obligation to pay strata levies. So that's how your levies are calculated as well. Now, the units of entitlement should be calculated based on the relative value of your property compared to the others. So a lot of people think it's based on size. It's not quite right. It is based on the relative value of your property to others. So they're the voting mechanisms that are in place, and then different resolutions require a simple majority vote or a 75% resolution, which is called a special resolution or unanimous voting. Okay. So I hope that helps.
Good on you, Scott.
Thank you very much.
Interesting text there from George. He said, when a unit complex is sold to a developer on a 70% vote and the other 30% were investment units, will they be subject to capital gains tax?
I'm not a tax agent. However,
we might be able to have a chat to Blake Wen about that.
Yeah. My gut feeling says yes, they would. Yeah. Again, all the normal tax rules would apply.
Yeah. Interesting one here too. I'm not sure who this is from, but guys, if you're not willing to pay for maintenance of the complex in which you're living, the question to ask is strata living right for you? The grief we are going through at the moment in our 50-year-old building with some owners, ouch.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, look, regrettably, strata levies have really been demonised for decades in Australia, and I'm on I won't say a one-man crusade, but I am on a crusade to try and get. I am on a mission to try and get owners to understand that cheap strata levies are not good. You need to properly invest in your building so it can be properly maintained, and again, you can create that harmonious living environment that I'm always talking about.
I think you've also got a percentage of people that are in a unit and they've bought it and they've got no intentions of being there in 5 years' time, so they think, well, why am I kicking all the money in? Whereas others are saying, this is it, I'm here till I die.
Yeah, that's right.
Big difference. Difference.
Yep.
Hey, listen, thank you for coming in every weekend. It's been an incredibly informative program, and I know the feedback we get from our listeners is always very, very positive. So thank you for everything you've done.
No worries, gents. Thank you so much for having me. I've had a lot of fun over summer. And again, if anyone wants to reach out to our association, it's 9492 8200.
And the website?
Strata Community. Just search Strata Community Association and you'll find us in all the different states and jurisdictions.
Beautiful. All right, mate. All the very best. Good to see you. We'll catch up with you soon.
Thanks, guys.